Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's season 11, our second to last season before the end of the pre-movie era, and the season that had a significant part of its development during a certain global crisis. So, while I may be critical, I do understand that it did have an impact on a lot of shows, even my beloved American Dad. It's hard to be creative when the world's in lockdown. Who knew? So how did Bob's Burgers fare this turbulent time? Well, there's only one way to find out and three questions to be asked. What worked, what failed, what time capsule power trips will be curtailed. So don't go to heaven, because it's time to review Season 11. It's our season premiere! Bob is trying to find the key to his lockbox to get the kids' birth certificates for an activity they want to do. He digs through his car and ends up falling asleep and dreams that he's become a tiny man that has to navigate his ant-infested car with the help of a rubber band ball and a self-help tape played by Jack McBrayer and John Glazer, respectively. The B story has Tina trying to learn a hand-clapping game and just not getting the rhythm at all, even though everyone else does it like the back of their hand. Haha! Bob goes through his car and realizes he's always self-sabotaging and destroys the embodiment of his cluttered life, while Tina finally understands how to clap. You know what? You have an absurd A story with a conventional B story with a unique twist. Is that proper structure I see? Do both stories have a solid payoff? What is this? Is this good? Is this creative and feels genuinely unique in absolutely how the Belchers would handle these situations? Does it give Bob a chance to navigate his own dreamscape and be creative? What? Bob? Inventive? I don't know. I appreciate what it sets up and actually resolves by the end, and as a whole, it was a pleasant surprise. Fantastic jokes, great introspection. It had everything you could possibly need. Dream a Little Bob of Bob is a reclined and relaxed 8 out of 10. Linda wants to take the family to the symphony on free night, and the school is dealing with the pinworm outbreak. Can you see what's being set up? A B story? You want a B story? Ha! Oh, you fool! You thought there was a B story to take you away from this miserable experience! Ha 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 ha! You had hope, and now you must suffer for that hubris. The family has pinworm. Watch Gene scoot his ass on the carpet like a dog. Witness it! Yeah, it's the family has worms episode. Linda thinks she's a bad mom and everyone realizes they've been infected by Gene and they all have worms. Everyone has worms. Louise is more worried about her hamster mega hangout that keeps getting in the way and it just all falls apart. Bob gets the medicine and the family all sit together and take their dewormer. This, as of watching every pre-movie era episode of Bob's Burgers, I can say is the worst episode of the show, bar none. The family gets worms. That's all that happens. There's even a musical number about it, where Linda's like, I'm not a bad mom, and then it's worms dancing with her. Goody! The worm episode. It's not particularly funny, you can't really have an emotional core, and even the song feels like a rare miss. This is an episode that fails on every conceivable level and does nothing. I could only watch as the episode played, frozen in sheer and abject awe of the all-encompassing abyss that gazed back unto me. Worms of Endearment is a mitten-eating, ass-itching 4 out of 10. Okay. Hopefully that is the worst it gets. Oh look, Felix is opening an underground club and Calvin wants Bob to work the kitchen while Linda and Calvin want to sing about bananas. Turns out they were never planning on operating the bar for real and really just doing it to placate Felix until they could tear it down and replace it with storage units. The B story has Teddy finding a large tub and the kids turning it into a basement leaking pool. Fun fact, this would actually be the first appearance of Grover, the fish odor's lawyer and cousin, and he will probably never be brought up again. Absolutely not. Doesn't matter at all to the overall story. Anyway, Felix goes crazy, Bob and Linda have to escape the nightclub, and Calvin pays them in free rent for their trouble. You know what? At least it has joke. It was a refreshing return to form after the wormisode. I don't know. I really needed this episode, and it's a great breath catcher for any marathon, and sometimes that's just good enough. Everyone is their best Belcher selves, and of course, Bob would apologize to his appliances when he worked on others. Of course, it would bug him, and I really kinda love it. That being said, I don't know what they're doing with Louise this season. She's just weird. She cares about being popular now and is trying to impress everyone with her underground pool, I guess. It's also like, how'd they get it down there? How'd they get it up? Teddy did all that? Poor Teddy. God love that man. He is doing too much for those kids. It's fine. The episode's fine. I'm not gonna talk myself out of that. The episode is fine. Copa Babana is a banana singing 7 out of 10. It's our Halloween episode. Ooh. The kids go to a hotel on Halloween when they see Dolores trying to do a seance with their dead husband and bring him back like she does every year. She wants to get revenge on him for cheating on her so she can send him straight to hell. The kids start to help her investigate, and Tina realizes that her husband didn't cheat on her. He had a peanut allergy and was having a reaction, and went with a doctor in a genie costume to lie down and hopefully fix it. Oh, how sweet. Yeah, he's not really a monster, just a really very tragic turn of events. The B story to this delightfully upbeat kid adventure? Teddy, Linda, and Bob give blood, and Bob isn't good with needles at all. He starts to panic and even takes the needle out of his arm when he thinks they're draining too much of his blood, which, I don't like that. No, sir. They left Bob alone in the Bloodmobile while they laughed and drank, and that was a nightmare I didn't know I had. Hate that I got a new fear from the show that's all about comfort, yet here I am. You know what? Better than the pig episode. This episode isn't even that bad at all. And honestly, I'll take a perfectly serviceable at this point. Heartbreak Hotel-oween is a Ouija squeegee using 7 out of 10. I just really wanted to say Ouija squeegee. Tina gets put in charge of the school time capsule, and you guessed it, the power goes to her head and she starts being super picky about what goes in, until Tammy, of all people, decides to do a time capsule, but cooler, that actually has something in it. Henry gives up Boys for Now tickets since he and Susmita broke up from his romantic changing of her homework answers for her, and Louise and Tina try and steal the tickets. The B story? Anything better than that? Bob makes fun of Linda for not being able to whistle, and Linda excessively rolls her R's in revenge. Yay. Henry and Susmita are the best part of an otherwise nothing episode. It's good to see them getting along. It's good to see a romance taking place. And you know what? Susmita is a fine character. I don't dislike her as an addition to the show. Don't love that Tammy's still involved, but hey, what can you do? The B story is just excessively long. It just keeps going with the rolling of the R's and the whistling. Who cares who can whistle? It just feels petty even by Bob and Linda's standards. The Tina going power mad story has just been so overdone at this point, it just feels like nothing. It could have been great and just ends up, The payoff isn't rewarding, the jokes aren't there, and overall it's just a slog. Fast Time Capsules at Wagstaff is a fake ticket dispensing 6 out of 10. It's our 200th episode! Woo! Alright, episode 100, Louise superglued Bob to a toilet. The 200th episode, the kitchen catches fire and the kids think it's their fault since they each kept going to improve Linda's statue and turned it more and more into a fire hazard. And it is glorious. The song is beautiful. I love that flaming mermaid. It's one of the most enchanting things I've ever seen. That being said, Bob is completely and utterly seething, justifiably, because he doesn't have a restaurant on one of the busiest days of the year. Teddy tries to get him a temporary flat top, and the kids, in an attempt to help their dad, go around town and almost break into someone's restaurant to get the part needed to fire up their grill again. The restaurant owner actually loves their note about a crime they didn't commit and just gives them the part and the day is saved. Then Ron comes in and says it was probably Hugo's fault the restaurant caught fire, and he'll probably pay for Bob's deductible. I don't even think it was Hugo, but it's whatever at this point. They're like, yeah, no, the fumes from the rags is probably what caused the fire. Like, yeah? Yeah, you're sure about that? I don't think the kids helped it at all. Like that, I don't know about all that, but sure, blame it on Hugo. The kids were actively remorseful and wanted to help their dad. Bob was broken, and the episode just had a very anxious energy that kind of made it shine. It was definitely action-packed enough to be the 200th episode, but man, it was some tense viewing. The musical numbers were fantastic, though. I gotta admit, I felt patriotic watching that mermaid burn. Bob Belcher and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad kids is a sparkler adorned 8 out of 10. It's our Thanksgiving episode. Gene has a stomach bug, so he's operating out of the bathroom for the holiday, and when he's not spackling the porcelain, he's asking the family to tell him stories to make him hate food. That's right, this Thanksgiving is an anthology episode. Yay. Oh, and Gene doesn't have a bug. He ate moldy chicken parm when his dad told him not to and got food poisoning from it. This kid is 11. He is 11. We forget that Gene is 11, and he chose to eat rotten chicken parm. Okay, sure. The three stories are a bread-based Predator, a Perry Fine Air Force One parody called Pear Force One, and Parmageddon, the Chicken Parm Armageddon adventure. Parmageddon. On the one hand, the concept for the episode is so dumb, and it's a holiday episode no less. On the other, Parmageddon. Again, very odd references to make, and it's not like they had anything other than loose puns to do with them. Pear Force One, get it? Get it? I'm just saying, there was no slack-jawed baguettes in the Predator one. A missed opportunity. Yeah, it's another anthology miss, but I've come to expect those at this point. It's fine. It's not nearly as bad as the British rom-com one, but it's certainly no cakewalk either, but Diarrhea of a Poopy Kid is a butter-slathered and berry-brined 5 out of 10. Linda's parents are on a layover, and so the family go to see them and count it as their visit so they don't have to go to Florida. Timothy Simons guest stars as a TSA agent. Neat. Yeah, it's the Belchers running around the airport trying to find Linda's parents, and Gloria demanding she get her free in-flight magazine she forgot on the plane. Al goes missing, and they find him in a massage chair after he kept complaining about his neck hurting. Awesome. Kinda weird that this is like the 3rd or 4th episode we've gotten with them, and they're just sort of walking around aimlessly in an airport. Cool. Maybe don't use them sometimes. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to see them anymore. Eventually, they get called to their flight, and the episode ends with Linda saying it counts. Oh, I didn't even talk about the B story, where Gene and Louise want pilot wings since Tina had some, and they're positive the wings give them special powers, even though, they're just pins. Yeah, sure, whatever helps the kids get through the day at this point. The jokes are okay, the grandparents are intentionally frustrating, and overall it's everything you need it to be. I just kind of wish it was a holiday episode. Why not have this as the Thanksgiving episode and have them try and make a Thanksgiving celebration like King of the Hill did? Giving Al itch cream just doesn't seem like enough justification for it, I guess. Give us just a little bit more substance to the episode, even if it's just a C story about Teddy doing something. It had a missing piece, The Terminalator 2, Terminals of Endearment, is a delayed, but still on schedule, 7 out of 10. The B story? Louise and Tina want to learn from Bob how to fight, and he starts trying to show them, except he never got in the ring himself, and can't even throw a punch without hurting his wrists. Oh look, they're bonding over punching a bag of meat like Rocky. Isn't that fun? Tina sticks her thumbs in her fist like a fool. It's precious. Oh, you actually want to talk about the A story? You want the A story? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Linda gets in a women of business networking group, and it's 6 weeks of her schmoozing with other women to find out what worked for each other. Hey, there you go. She probably butts heads with the leader or something, right? Oh, no. See, she missed her and Jean's spa day for the meeting, so he goes to the meeting and tries to pull her into the bathroom to have an impromptu spa day and acts like Linda doesn't have any time for herself. Jean is being a spoiled brat and acting like a petulant child when he's 11. He starts obsessing over Linda and even melts down at her meeting until he sees that he was being too much, way after the fact. Cool. So glad that's where they decided to take Jean as a character. It's not everyone has worms bad, but man oh manity, it is not a fun watch. Mommy Boy is a mud mask adorned. 5 out of 10. It's our Christmas episode. Bob is invited to cook at the Glencrest Yacht Club and has no idea why anyone would want him to cook, and gets incredibly curious about who could have possibly recommended him. Louise wants to get the best presents off the boat that Teddy is driving as Santa, so they enlist the help of Gus to get them to the boat so they can get the first pick of presents. Turns out Jimmy Pesto was the one that recommended Bob, and Bob gets paranoid thinking that Jimmy wants to embarrass him in front of everyone because he constantly does that. He's a prank monster. Though we later find out Jimmy thought if they ate Bob's food, they'd see Jimmy was a stand-up guy and worth letting into the club, and they do have a nice little moment. It's a perfectly okay Christmas episode that feels like a real shoreside holiday. Also, I kinda love that the Glencrest president is a more recurring character now. He's honestly a really solid addition that fits as a great antagonist and extra part of the city. Here, he's just trying to make sure the yacht club is going without any problems. In What About Blob, he was the active antagonist, and he's great! And having that Jimmy angle does reference back to Burger Boss, it just feels whelming. It's not an amazing Christmas episode, it's not the worst Christmas episode, it just kinda spins its wheels, and I feel horrible that I keep saying that, but it does. As the story progresses, Jimmy and Trev never really do anything horribly suspicious other than move in a crowd, and Bob is slapping bungee strings around him like he's frickin' Borat. It just doesn't really work in that third act, and while it's nice to see Bob and Jimmy getting along, you know it's not gonna last. Yachty or Nice is a boat toad. 7 out of 10. It's our Valentine's Day episode! Teddy helps Bob and Linda turn their restaurant into Urge for the night as a chance to capitalize on the Valentine's Day market, even preparing chuck steaks instead of burgers. Ooh la la. The B story has Tina going to Tammy's anti-Valentine's Day / anti-love party with a bunch of other single kids and is shocked and appalled when they all start trying to make out with each other, determined to help them fight their urges. The A story is still fun, the B story is just sort of there. Oh look, Tammy is making out with a guy because, yeah, that's why Tammy would set this up. That's completely on brand for Tammy. Tammy is, let's say it together, folks, the what? The worst. That's where we all clap. I imagine we are all clapping at that point. I just kind of really wanted to see more of the restaurant. Like, the A story has Hugo come in for a special date with a lady friend that the Belchers had to pretend is coming until she actually does show up and crisis is averted. I appreciate that Hugo was more of a ticking clock than he was the active antagonist of the episode, and that the episode actually had a lot of charm to it. I don't know, I appreciated that they were trying something at least a little new, and it really seemed to be working. Jokes were fresh, the story was very fluid, and the performances are still top-notch. They still have it, they're not phoning it in. As much as I may hate the Worm episode, I can tell you, it's the first one I've seen. They're still being unique, they're still being weird, it's just the stories are very much more hit or miss. Romancing the Beef is an urged on 8 out of 10. Linda wants the perfect holiday picture. I had to make sure this wasn't the Christmas episode, and nope, just an episode about a holiday card. She hates that they never have any good ones, so they go to a hiking trail, hike up 3 miles, take the perfect picture, and then Linda gets her hand stuck in a rock formation and they have to rotate her to get her and her camera out to keep the picture safe. You know what? I appreciate that they at least got the picture at the end of the day. It didn't fall, it didn't get shattered into a million pieces, and like, oh no, well there goes our picture that we had worked so hard for. I am glad they got it. I am glad they got that trophy. They deserve a win that is untainted. Sure, they had to work at it, and Louise came in clutch with her wood puzzle knowledge, but you know what? It's a mom in pursuit of the perfect family photo, and I'm sure that's relatable to moms out there. No real B story, nothing to take away from the adventure, and it honestly works. I know I've been critical of him in the past, but Rob Hubel as the park ranger in this episode really brings the whole thing together. It sounds like he's having some fun with it, and it does shine through. And that's not to say that he hasn't been doing a great job in previous episodes. If I have a complaint, it's just that he's in the show so much, and those times that he does show up and gives an excellent performance are just sort of lost in the sauce of the myriad of other characters he's played in the show. Give him a few that he really shines on, and this one, he's fantastic. It could have just been Dave Herman, but no, he's there, he's trying, and he does a great job. He has a lot of really good energy. Say your lines with a smile, folks, it works wonders. I will absolutely take this as a background noise episode any day. Die card or card trying is a wrist rotating 8 out of 10. The family is at a flea market when Bob and Linda see their worst nightmare. The wheelie mammoth from back in the taking of Funhouse 123. He has returned. Turns out they sold it to try and get it out of the house because it was obnoxiously large, and they told the kids they donated it even though it was right there at the flea market. They buy the mammoth, give it to a roller rink to help the obvious skating orphans. I mean, how else are they skating? Poor orphans. And so they can keep the lie going to their kids. You know what? I think I could say this is my favorite episode of the entire season. Calls back to an earlier episode, has the parents lying to their kids but in a relatable way, and feels like an early season Bob's Burgers episode. I don't know. It's got great jokes, the panic in Linda and Bob's voices is phenomenal, and you can really hear the plight of two parents that know they can't fit this giant mammoth in their tiny home, and they are fighting for their lives out here. I really kind of adore it. The kids are being super detectives, Gail's in on it for some reason, and again, you know, Dave Herman is great as the rink manager, which is a dumb thing that I never thought I'd say, but he's terrific. He's like, you guys are lying to your kids too? Yeah, no, I'll do whatever I can to help. What? The Wheelie Mammoth is my mascot now. It was like 30 minutes. That's great. He's fantastic. Again, if they're having fun with a role, you can tell, and they become those standout performances. It's easily one of the best episodes I've seen in a minute, and it's got all the charm I could ever need. And Inconant Truth is a rink-saving 9 out of 10. Linda and Tina go to a shoe warehouse to try on shoes and even see what some non-clearance shoes are like to experience the fancy life. Bob, Teddy, and Louise go to meet Adam Appliances to pick up a new hood for the grill, but get spooked when they're waiting too long for a receipt and think he's planning to take them out. Notice someone missing from my ketchup? That's right, Bob and Linda both forget to take Gene, so he's left home alone and doesn't know what to do with himself. So, Gene panicked, he gets his buddy Ken on the tongs and talks to him while he roams the house and thinks of stuff to do to keep himself from spiraling as the darkness of being alone creeps in more and more. Gene has to deal with being alone and actually starts to mature a little, I guess? I don't know. It feels like the calm before the storm. Like we're gearing up for an especially Gene episode. 3 stories with no real conclusion, so I guess that's just where things are gonna stand this season. It just feels like a less enthusiastic execution for an idea that should make for a really solid episode. It just has a lot of points where it drags out, and even Gene's song about, hey, maybe I'm not so bad alone, maybe I just need to get used to it, doesn't really do anything. Mr. Lonely Farts is a micro-dosing, bun burger consuming 7 out of 10. Linda's on a new diet, and when she's out exercising, she can't get into the park's bathroom, so she goes to do her business behind a bush and gets caught by some kids and arrested. So the rest of the episode revolves around Bob trying to post bail without the kids finding out what their mom did, so they won't think less of her. Yeah, wow. Last episode, Gene was left home alone. This episode, Linda has public indecency. Awesome. What a season this has turned out to be. And I know it sounds like I'm being much shorter this season, and it's largely because there's just not that much to say about the episodes. They're there, but if I'm gonna be too critical on them, they were made during the pandemic. There's only so much you can do with little resources. You gotta sometimes just be happy with what you get. And, you know, the episode isn't a total loss. Yes, it shows Bob and the family struggling day to day when they have to find any way to post bail since they have to get cash. And sure enough, Sergeant Bosco thinks Linda is guilty, but that's really all the episode does. By the end, bail is posted and they don't think Linda is some kind of serial pooper. It's an episode. I don't know. It weirdly also feels like an earlier season episode that just drags out the more awkward elements as much as humanly possible. It's perfectly there and never really overcomplicates itself. Kinda wish there was a C story or something to break up the back and forth, but alas, if wishes and dreams were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Shank Redemption is conferenced and cleansed 7 out of 10. At the upcoming fundraiser, Louise and Gene want to dunk Franz into the dunk tank, and he's confident he's never gonna get dunked. I'll admit, I love Franz's cockiness. Man is holding his phone and laptop and ready for kids to fail, and he's delightfully cruel this one time only. Like, go on, be your weird self, Franz, I'm about it. Get your win over these kids. Oh, the focus of the episode? You want to know the A story? Sure, okay, yeah. Tina is struggling in Spanish, so she has to listen to books on tape and try and get better. Only she falls in love with Rodrigo, the voice of a boy on the tape, and you guessed it, doesn't want to stop listening to the tapes or her new crush. These tapes are from like 25 years ago, but sure, why not? It's like being attracted to the Mumsy monster. Rodrigo would be played by Julio Torres. She willingly fails her test so that she can spend more time with effectively analog Duolingo. It's a perfectly Tina thing to do, but my god is it awkward. I'm just so tired of dumb, awkward Tina stories. If Ron wasn't so cocky, the episode would be a wash, but he's just so confident it's infectious, and he actually got a few laughs out of me. Dave Herman still loves being in this show, and you can tell. The deeper we get, the more experimental he's gotten, and I'm all here for it. Even just Bob and Linda writing cool words at their water station on the cups to get kids enticed to make theirs the coolest place to hang out is a dumb fun touch. E2 Tina-Tambien is a see and sawing 7 out of 10. It's another Tina is a hall monitor episode. Is it as good as Midday Run? Nope, not even close. Mr. Franz wants to find out where all the kids are going and what they're doing. Turns out everyone is getting together in the boiler room to put on a hand puppet dance, and Tina is enraptured by the digit dancing spectacle. She sings about how she wants to be a hand dancer and shares in the forbidden joy of this, I don't know, palm ballet? The B story focuses around Bob and Linda helping Teddy smuggle in burgers for his date with Kathleen at the movie theater, even bringing up Linda's pit net she wore back when she was dealing with her rash. Remember that? Remember the rash B story? This episode is not setting itself up to be remembered fondly, but okay, sure. Franz catches the kids and the fad is quashed. Such is the tragic life of finger dancing. The episode at least has some noir elements that I enjoy, and it does still keep some of the elements of Midday Run, but it doesn't hold a candle to how great that episode was. The musical number was inventive. They are still being creative with the ideas. I mean, who would expect a hand puppet dancing group? It's a surprisingly wholesome activity. They're not doing it for money. They're not taking bets. They're just performing. It's effectively if they were breakdancing in the back and they had little cardboard floors they were spinning on. That would be delightful. It's just dumb. It's like if Gene was playing with Beyblades. It's okay. I don't dislike that idea. The execution was just very, very, very dull. This just feels like the shell of something much, much better. Fingers Loose is a burger smuggling, hand dress wearing 6 out of 10. Bob is pulling his car from the curb and gets rear-ended, which makes him rear-end the car in front of him and gets them all in a good old fender bender. Everyone has to wait for the cop, and they start getting their story straight and scheming so their rates don't have to go up. Patty would be played by Patty Harrison, and Officer Bridget would be played by Bridget Everett. Bob wants to believe in the good of mankind and keeps wanting to admit his fault to the cop because he doesn't know for sure he did or didn't signal and may have been the cause of everything until they realize that Andy and Ollie were missing the melon head of their scarecrow and they find evidence that none of them are at fault. Doesn't that sound exciting? I was really on the edge of my seat that entire journey. I know it was supposed to be a very low-impact story and adventure, but could you give us a B story to break it up? Have the other drivers be more exaggerated. Give us something that pushes it over the top. Otherwise, it's just Bob believing in people, singing about it, then figuring out what actually happened when he's having doubts about people. You've seen it before. It feels familiar. And the fact that they thought they could have this entire focus around one traffic accident just doesn't do it. It's nice to see Teddy hyper-fixated, I guess, but some kind of fender benderful is righteously cited 6 out of 10. Rudy has a collapsible bridge that Louise desperately wants to see fall, so she offers to bring it over for Rudy from his parents' house so he can blow it up in front of them. What? Louise putting her personal wants before everyone else and guilt-tripping / pressuring them to do what she wants to do just to somehow get the bridge to Rudy and have it be moderately exciting? Say it isn't so! Yeah, talk about a predictable A story that just does a whole lot of nothing. That being said, the B story is actually really fascinating. Bob learns from Mort how to meditate and starts to achieve Zen, which burns Jimmy Pesto's ass. He's infuriated that Bob won't react to his goading, so he tries to out-meditate Bob, and they have a meditate off until Jimmy actually starts to crack. Now, the very fascinating thing about this is not only is this a great Bob and Jimmy story, it's actually the last time Jay Johnston would ever play Jimmy Pesto. For 43 of the last 213 episodes, Jay Johnston was a prime antagonistic force for Bob, and for one day he was a prime antagonistic force for the Capitol building. And while Jimmy Pesto will return, this would be the end of an era. For that reason alone, the episode is absolutely worth watching. Yeah, I would have absolutely loved to have seen the Bob story as the A story, but I get it. Louise is the moneymaker. Just wish there was a better payoff to the Louise story. Bridge over Troubled Rudy is January 6th impacted 7 out of 10. The kids are at Dr. Yap's office when Gene beats Louise at a game in basically a highlights magazine, and Tina questions if she should be attracted to an anthropomorphic fox. Tina is a furry, gang. Welcome to this episode. The kids steal the magazine and Dr. Yap hunts them down to get his magazine back, and they keep going back and forth, until the kids manage to sneak the magazine into his car and leave him perplexed how it got there. Oh, and the B story? Bob, Linda, and Teddy try and get bird poop off the window. They're smearing, wiping, washing, anything and everything to get that off-white monstrosity off their glass. Yep, that way everybody's doing something. I guess we haven't had a Dr. Yap adventure in a minute, so I guess it's a positive that we got some more of him, even though the Halloween episode was a perfectly great, last appearance, and I haven't seen one that tops it, but okay. The episode is just dull. I never thought I'd be bored watching Bob's Burgers, yet here I am just watching these children outsmart an adult again. He's Yap. He could have just let all this go, but of course he didn't. He's gotta have drama. Of course, he couldn't just be cool. It's just frustrating that you feel like you've seen it all before when you haven't. The stories are just so muted and common. It lacks the spark that made Bob's Burgers especially weird. What's weird about the kid stealing a magazine and the parents cleaning off bird crap? Other than, I guess, Tina being a furry that we just, again, never really get more on. It's mentioned, it's shown briefly, and then you move on. It's just like, eh. You could have had her do like a whole, I don't know, Hayao Miyazaki cat neighbor thing, and she follows around the fox and there's a musical number and it makes it into actually something. But no, they felt they needed to do a lingering shot of everybody in a booth until one of them cracks. Cool. Steel Magazine Olias is a box making, fox watching 6 out of 10. You know, we haven't had a Logan and Cheryl episode in a minute. Oh look, here comes one now. Is it good? No! Linda puts little trash shoes on the trash can and starts giving it some personality when all of her work gets torn down and a warning is put up in its place. Turns out Cheryl is adamantly against Linda's really dumb and inoffensive idea, and even has her city councilor husband get ready to draft a ban so her real estate properties can be free of the, just, again, weird and dumb eyesore. Oh look, Logan is helping his mom because she paid him, and the kids are helping Linda because she forced them. Cool. What's Bob doing? He's using Totally Not Next Door and admiring a local gardener's massive cucumbers. Man's just obsessed with cukes, even gets to meet the guy. Yep, it sure is events that do happen and were animated. People were paid to make this episode. I don't know. You wait all this time. You get a Logan episode, and then it's nothing. Again, remember the time period that this came out in. You gotta give the show some grace. And the fact it's only a handful of especially bad episodes really says something about the overall quality of the show. But I'll admit, I've never been more relieved to be at the end of a Bob's Burgers season, and I really do hate to see it. Tell Me Dumb Thing Good is a trash accessorizing 6 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. Bob is excited to take Tina to a Camp Vampire movie event in the same vein as Rocky Horror Picture Show. Tina invites her friends and Bob begrudgingly chaperones them all. Fun fact, Destiny the Vampire in the movie would be played by Nicolette Robinson. There's just something so wholesome about Bob finding a community at a campy B-movie celebration. He's yelling at the screen, doing the dances, and it just makes so much sense for his character. I also love that he runs into the movie theater guy that they've interacted with in the Hawk and Chick episodes, and he's like, yeah, no, I love working a night where people throw garlic at the screen. As someone that's been both to the events and working a movie theater after one of those events, you feel seen. You feel very seen with this episode. Anyway, Bob's yelling at the screen, he's doing the dances, and it just makes so much sense for him. And he just wants to share this magic with this little girl, and admittedly, it is something you would think Tina would be super into. It's very reminiscent of when Bob took Gene to the Laser Rock show and really shows Bob was a nerdy alternative kid and gives him way more personality. Oh, but then Tammy, Jocelyn, Jimmy Jr., and Zeke talk through the movie and hang out in the lobby and start to ruin the experience for everyone. Because they're just the absolute worst and can't let Tina be happy, I guess. Oh boy, they're playing Did He Drink or Not Drink? Come on, Tina, get in on this fun and exciting action. I'm so numb. I'm so numb. I'm at a point where I just genuinely hate Tammy now. She is just completely and utterly the worst, and I'm so tired of seeing this group. Oh, the B story? Linda opens a restaurant in the alley for the raccoons since they had to close the dumpster. She does a whole lady in the trash panda thing and makes a big spaghetti feast that the feral animals start to fight over. Wow, who knew that would happen? Yeah. At this point, I'm just glad to be at the end. There's a lot to like here, but Tammy and the crew just bring it down, even though that is the point. I don't even care if they enjoyed the movie by the end, the damage was done. Vampire Disco Death Dance is a garlic-throwing, disco dancing 7 out of 10. And there we have it. That's season 11. Anything you think I was right on? Wrong on? What was your favorite episode? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends we're out here. Season 11 came out in a very difficult time globally, and even though things were rough, overall it was about the same quality as season 10, which speaks to the passion of the people working on the show that they were still able to produce some form of consistency when the world was in chaos. Make no mistake, you can still tell there's a love for the show at the core of every episode, and they're still not phoning it in. Sometimes you just have more misses than hits, and that's okay. We have just one more season of the pre-movie era, and it's gonna be a wild ride. We'll have crystals, Tamagotchis, and even some pumpkins that come back from beyond the grave. There's a lot to see when we delve into season 12. And that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. If you want to support the channel, consider joining our Patreon or membership programs today. $2 a month and you get exclusive polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Woo! Thank you all so much for watching, and like always, stay strong, keep fighting that good fight, and remember, no matter what, you matter. Even if you just woke up today, I'm proud of you. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one hell of a wave a-coming. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.